Hi, I'm Angelica. Thank you for joining me at the Angelica Ang TV program. Today, I'm honored to have Speaker Cup David. Say hi, Speaker Cup David.
Hello, having me on the show, Angelica.
Thank you for joining me. Speaker Cup David is a keynote speaker and the creator of the acclaimed book From Global Days. And he also hosts own TV show From Global Days. And he interviewed former athletes that transit from top professional sports and back to everyday life. They share openly on their personal stories of how they've been through the struggle and success. If you want a proven winner, or to build a better team, or to create stronger leadership, or to face challenge like a champion, go to kurtdavid.com and let Speaker Kurt David to work with you. Tell us more about your professional basketball playing days and how it ended. And how does this shape you into the person you are today?
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Angelica. And basketball was a very important part of my life. Sports was a very important part of my life. But as we know, 100% of professional athletes ultimately lose their job. In other words, at some point it is overplaying. And that transition can be difficult. I mean, there's a rude reality to the transition from sports. And many times it's financial, it's emotional. I mean, we have so much attached to the sport emotionally for so many years. It was difficult. It took me about 5 years to relax. For one, I believed I was in competition with everybody constantly all around me. And so it took me a while to relax. Financially, I go from getting paid to do something I love to no longer having a paycheck. So I basically lost my job and had to find another job at that point. And so it's a very sobering and difficult transition. But the good news is, as we know, that it does end at some point, and so preparation is the most important thing. In other words, for me, the preparation was finishing my degree. I have a college degree, and I was finishing that degree before I played professionally, and so I had that to fall back on. And I started counseling. I started working with kids. I started working with families and helping them with their lives, and so that gave me some purpose again. One of the most important things in transition, whether it be as a sports athlete or a person in everyday life, is having passion and purpose. And when my basketball career ended, I lost a lot of passion. That passion for basketball was no longer available for me, and so I had to recreate passion and purpose. And so one of the things I did was looking at my goals, saying, what are my new goals now that I'm not playing basketball anymore? What can I do? And so one of my purposes is to help others, and so I was able to help others, and that's what helped me during that first 5 years.
Speaker Kurt David, how can you apply your experience as a former athlete and now a speaker? How do you help people who are not involved with sports?
That's a great question, Angelica. Many of us in sports have certain mindsets and certain attitudes. You know, we learn about teamwork, we learn about persevering, we learn about working through difficulty, getting up, falling down 7, getting up 8 times. We learn about those things in sports. And really, many of those things, those lessons in life, as I call them, apply to everyday life. In other words, things that I've learned in sport can be directly applied to things that happen in life. As an example, when we work with other people, we have to know how to work as a team. We have to know how to help each other. We have to know what each of our gifts are. All of us have different gifts as athletes, but also as human beings. And so understanding those gifts, and especially in a work environment, understanding how to work with each other and work as a team, that's very important. And so that's one of the direct applications from sports to everyday life. The other thing is, I think one of the biggest things that sports taught for me that can be helpful for everybody is learning how to work hard. In other words, working hard is very difficult because it's not our nature. Sometimes we don't want to work hard, but you learn in sports to push yourself and be pushed. And more importantly, how to take constructive criticism for other people. And so one of my thoughts about your question is to understand that even though sports is a big part of my life, there's many things that I can teach others that have nothing to do with sports. We talk about stories of other companies and individuals that are athletes or not athletes that have great success. And to me, that's what it boils down to. How do we create success in our lives? Whether it be personally, professionally, as an athlete, as a non-athlete, finding success in life and creating success in life is very important.
Speaker Kurt David, the competition is fierce for keynote speaker. What makes you different?
Yeah, there's no question. There's a lot of great speakers out there. But like in pro sports, you have to work hard. There's fierce competition in sports. And you learn how to get better. You learn how to improve. You allow criticism to help yourself get better as well. And it's the same way in the speaking world. In other words, when I speak, when I do my keynote speaking, I want to make sure that I stand out, that I help people better than anybody else. And one of the first things it stands out is my height. I'm 2 meters 6 centimeters tall. And so that's one of the first things that stands out is how tall I am, 2 meters 6 centimeters. But seriously, though, one of the things that I want to do is make sure that when I speak with companies and corporations is that what I talk about is immediately applicable to their life. In other words, they're able to apply what we talk about, the keys, the vital keys, whether it be about leadership, about facing change, or about conflict resolution. I want to make sure that those keys are immediately applicable, that they can put those in the next day right there in the office. And so that's one of the first things that I do. But also, I also like creating videos. One of the things that I like to do is create a video in advance of a keynote presentation and speaking so that they can have a little bit more about me, a little bit more about what I'm talking about, and pass that out to their membership and their corporation beforehand. Not many speakers do that, so I really enjoy doing that as well.
So what do you want your audience to do differently after they heard your presentation?
Yeah, that's a great question, Angelica. One of the things that I want my audience to do right away is think. I want them to think about the things we talked about, but more importantly, I want them to do the things that we talked about. Not necessarily because it's me sharing it, but because what we're talking about can be used to improve their life. In other words, my goal is for them to change. I want them to change the way they think about leadership. I'd like them to change the way they think about facing change and conflict resolution so that it can be improved and can get better.
Speaker Kurt David, from Glory Days book, transition out of sports into a real world can be a painful and confusing times for athletic life. How do you feel at first?
Yeah, that book was very important to me. First of all, when transitioning from pro sports, the statistics are very poor. In other words, in America, 25% of NFL players, National Football League players, are broke within the first year out. 60% of National Basketball Association, NBA players, are broke within 5 years out. 78% of National Football League players are broke within 2 years. And there's an 80% divorce rate for transitioning athletes. So from job loss to disaster, that can be the reality. And so this transition for sports is very important to me. And the book itself was something that I was inspired. It was like a 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I had the idea, I thought it would be neat to sit down with other former pro athletes and talk to them about life after pro sports. So I did 20 interviews for the book in which I interviewed former people here in Detroit about their life after pro sports. But more importantly, I wanted to focus on athletes that found success again. In other words, not that they didn't struggle with that transition after pro sports, but they somehow find a way to have success again. And my goal for writing the book, which took me about 3 years to write between the interviews and the writing, my goal for writing the book was to, if somebody could read that book and it helped them with their transition or help them with their change, athlete or not, that was my motivation for writing the book.
And at the book, is there any particular person that impact you the most during their transitions and during their success moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've done 20 interviews for the book. I've done 50 interviews for the TV show. And so I've had lots of great stories of athletes that have transitioned. And to be honest, they're all great stories. They all have individual stories. Some are sad. Some end up with a happy ending. But probably one of my favorite is a player talking about how he went from being a professional hockey player. He went from being a professional athlete to suddenly a quadriplegic. In other words, he was paralyzed from the neck on down because of an injury in sports. And he talked about how difficult that was for him. He talked about how he went from being a pro athlete to he had no feeling from the neck on down. And so he went on to learn that he was no longer a pro athlete, but he started studying about spinal cord injury. In other words, about his neck injury. He started studying about that. And over the course of 14 years, he realized that his spinal cord could be recovered, that it wasn't totally severed. And he literally went from being a person that couldn't walk to now he's walking as a motivational speaker and author. So he's gone from professional athlete to paralyzed from the neck on down to now he's walking again and he's a motivational speaker and best-selling author. And it's just a great story of from tragedy to triumph.
Speaker Kurt David, from gory books, how do you transit it to your own talk show from gory days?
Yeah, that's a great question, Angelica. That was a big transition from writing the book with former professional athletes to interviewing and having over 50 TV shows now with former athletes was a huge transition for me. But we realized this topic of transition and change was very important with athletes, but more importantly, we want it to be important with people that watch the show and not just learn about the athletes, but learn about transition. In other words, I've done over 50 TV interviews with different former professional athletes about their life after pro sports, but more importantly, what are they doing now and how do they recreate that success? And we're finding it's growing more and more in popularity. People like to watch about their former athletes. They like to hear about those glory days of the former athletes, whether it be football, basketball, baseball. But they also like to hear what they're doing now and why did they recreate their success? How did they do that? And so those are some of the important topics that we cover during the TV show every day.
And how do you keep their story authentic? And what is the method for you to draw up their personal story?
Yeah, it's a great question. I lived the life myself. In other words, I was a former professional athlete, so I understand that life. And now as a counselor, I have a master's in counseling. I understand a little bit about counseling. And so it's a combination of my own experience as an athlete, but also my life as a counselor. I understand that life and how to ask the questions and which questions to ask. And so one of the things that I think that really helps me connect with the athletes is that, one, I lived the life as an athlete. Two, as I'm a counselor, so I understand that life after pro sports. But more importantly, I can help them understand that you can have success again. Sure, you had great success as an athlete, but you can have even more success after sports. And that's one of the messages I want to come across.
Speaker Kurt David, what motivates you to do what you do?
That's a great question, Angelica. We all need motivation in our life, and many things that motivate us. Sometimes people are motivated by family. Some people are motivated by money. For me, it's very different. What motivates me is I realized many years ago what my purpose was. In other words, my purpose on this earth for the short time that we have here is to serve God and to serve others. And that's what motivates me. All of my actions, everything I say, I needed to serve God and serve others. And that's my motivation. That's what wakes me up every day. That's what helps me with my family and with the people that I speak to in corporations and companies. I'm looking to help others and to serve others. That's what my motivation is on a daily basis.
What is your short and long goal and vision as a speaker and from glory days?
Yeah, as far as the TV show, we are airing here in Detroit right now. Our goal is to be national throughout the whole United States, and even if not international, to have people learn from these athletes and see, about life after pro sports, whether it be football or baseball or basketball. We would love for these stories to be national and international. We want to get this show internationally so people can watch about these former athletes and learn about their life after pro sports and how do they recreate success again. So that's my goal for the TV show. As far as speaking, my goal is always to change lives. And the more lives I can change, the better. And the more opportunity I have to get in front of audiences and companies and corporations to change lives, that's great for me. I would love to be internationally throughout Singapore, throughout other countries, and speak more and more, talking about change, facing change like a champion, talking about positive leadership and the 9 principles to help develop that leadership. And then also talking about conflict resolution, 5 vital keys to make through conflict. I mean, those are the 3 topics that I speak on the most and the most popular. And I would love to continue to roll that out throughout Singapore and other countries throughout Asia and actually throughout the world. Those are my long-term goals.
If you find value at this Angelica Ang TV, please subscribe to this Angelica Ang TV program. Thank you.